the 7 continents of the world: Antarctica, Australia, Africa, Asia, North America, South America, Europe. Welcome to Atlanta Discuss. In the past, I always say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the globe you're in. But my Australian friend told me, look, just say good day. And that's why I say good day, 7 continents of the world. That should suffice. Today, we're deviating a bit. We're still in the continent of Africa. We're going to South Africa. We're looking at the battle for the soul of South Africa. An election has been won and lost. There's been a lot of realignment is going on. South Africa is very strategic in the African continent. They were a country that everybody fought for one way or the other. They've had issues, but the stability of South Africa is very, very important. Stability is important, not just for South Africa, for the sub-region and for Africa at large. It's a country that started well. They might have their hiccups, but by a lot of standards available, they reference and a parameter and a yardstick for measuring so many things Africa should be proud of. But today we have a great guest at that. We have Dr. Akpan with us, Dr. Udoh James Akpan from KwaZulu-Natal there in Durban. Dr. Akpan, welcome to Atlanta Discourse.
Thanks, Jola. How are you?
I'm fine. How's the weather over there? How's everything? How's life treating you?
Yeah, well, we are gradually getting into winter, so it's getting cold, sort of.
Wow.
Life, well, South Africa is, so life is also.
Okay, fantastic. So Dr. Udoh James Akpan is a scholar. In Atlanta Discourse here, we love scholars, people that know it, people that research, people that can break down the rudimentary analysis to the tiniest, to the minutest of detail. He's a change management consultant. He's the postdoctoral research fellow in the Department of Criminology and Foreign Studies, University of KwaZulu-Natal. He is also an external academic with the Management College of Southern Africa, that's Makosa, where he teaches inclusive stakeholder management and with strategic and corporate communication, amongst others. He's a man versatile in so many areas. Like I said, he's a scholar, he's a man of so many parts. I'm sure if I start reading his resume, I will probably be here for another 20 minutes, but it's okay. Dr. Akpan is a Nigerian, and Nigerians are scholars, and statistically, there's enough statistics to show that Nigerians are the most educated migrating bloc to 2 to 3 of the 7 continents of the world. We are very sure of North America. In Europe, it's still tilting here and there. Asia is also tilting there. But I think Australia and North America, Nigeria are the most educated migrating bloc. So there's no surprise there when you see Nigerians in South Africa. On this show, I've spoken to Nigerians in Namibia, Nigerians in Russia, Nigerians all over the world. And we're going to keep doing that because we know there's a lot of bad PR out there for Nigeria. So we have to propagate the Nigerian gospel in the most positive way. The battle for the soul of South Africa, that's why we're here. Already, the result is out. There has to be alignment and realignment of forces. As a Nigerian, I'm not very happy because that election went smooth, despite all the shenanigans, everything went smoothly. I'm sure if it was in my country, the ANC would have had 90-something% of the vote count, but then the voice of the people must always also vote populi, vox Dei. That's what we know right now. ANC has 40.21%, the DA has 21.78%, the MKP has 14.58%, EFF has 9.51%, others has 13.91%. When I say others, I'm talking IFP, the other DA, VF, Action SA, AC, DP, UDM. UDM has 0.49, which is not too bad for them. ACDP has 0.60, VF has 1.36, IFP has 3.85. So that's what summarizes to the order. So looking at this, we all know South Africa has seven provinces, and the result in those 7 provinces, we're going to look at them empirically also if we have the time. Limpopo, Gauteng, Palamanga, North West, KwaZulu, Free State, East Cape, West Cape, North Cape, population we know is not as big as Nigeria, our country, but I know they have 23,392 police stations. They are just about 27.79, roughly 28 million. You can balance that with the population of Lagos and Ogun State, So overall population is 62 million, but the eligible voters are the 28 million. So I make build that up. 9 provinces. Dr. Akpan, based on what you know, you're a resident there. I mean, I know it's a global village, we all read about it, but you're a resident there, you're conversant, you're a lecturer, you know most of these principal actors one-on-one. Give us a background of what led to the current result, you know, because we can see that the ANC, the major pillar, the party of Mandela, the party of Mbeki, the party of Moglante, party of Zuma, party of Cyril Ramaphosa, is scoring just 50%. You know, I mean, that's just some years down the line. What led to all this? Dr. Akpan, you have the floor.
Okay, all right. I think we should start by establishing that, like you introduced, I'm in Durban. Durban is the third largest city, so to speak, in Durban, and is in the province called KwaZulu-Natal. Durban houses the most, if you like, active port in Africa, and it's only second in terms of cosmopolitanism and population and business activities behind Johannesburg and Cape Town. So Durban is very important. It's important because it is the homestead of the Zulus. The Zulus have the largest population in South Africa. The Zulus are sitting at about 11, 12, probably 13 in terms of population. So that makes them a very strong voting bloc if you are going to look at demography. And the Zulus are, outside being resident in KwaZulu-Natal, the Zulus also are a bit dispersed around South Africa. So it is common to see out of every 5 South Africans, probably 4 will speak Zulu as their second language. The Zulus will speak their language, and they will refuse to speak other people's language. But the other people will speak their language. Maybe they speak Sesotho, either Northern Sesotho or Southern Sesotho, or Tswana, or Xhosa, and then they will still speak Zulu also. So it is safe to say that Zulu language is a language of, is a major lingua franca, is a language of commerce, the language of power also, if you like, in South Africa. Now, I'm giving this background to relate it to the political currency of today. ANC, for the purpose of education for our viewers, was actually formed by some Zulu men, by Zulu man. The first head of ANC was Zulu. His name was John Langalaga Dube. And after that, the people from the Eastern Cape, Xhosa, have been on the mantle of leadership of the party for a very long time. And even before after the fall of apartheid, Nelson Mandela to Walter Sisulu to Oliver Tambo, all these are people from Eastern Cape and Zulu people. So it was. But if you look at the history, if you look at the history of South Africa, one people that stands out in the history of South Africa are the Zulus. You can go back to Shaka Zulu, the famous warrior that invented the fighting instrument, spear, and all that. Very remarkable and interesting story. And if you also follow the history of South Africa, you'll see that the Zulus had a lot of battles also with the white people when they arrived in South Africa. You have the battle of the Blood River. You have all the various battles were fought in KwaZulu-Natal. KwaZulu-Natal itself, Natal is Portuguese for Christmas, while KwaZulu means the home of the Zulu. So when the Portuguese came, eventually, the Dutch, the Afrikaans, so to speak, came, and then the Portuguese left and went towards Mozambique, and then the English came. So there were a lot of battles to gain KwaZulu-Natal because it is rich in agriculture. So the great sugarcane plantation is in KwaZulu-Natal, and that is why they brought the Indians to come to. The Indians that came to South Africa actually all settled in KwaZulu-Natal to come work the sugarcane plantation. So KwaZulu-Natal and Durban are very strategic in the political calculation of South Africa. Now, eventually, now remember that I said that the party ANC was started by a Zulu person, but they had lost the leadership for a very long time. So at some point, at the eclipsing of the tenure of Thabo Mbeki, who was the then president, Jacob Zuma, who was also a labor unionist, a labor leader in his own right, and also headed the paramilitary wing of ANC, and became the president. And he was there in the saddle for 9 years. And that occupation of that seat resulted into a very bitter political rivalry between the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Jacob Zuma. And it went on for a long while, and Jacob Zuma lost out in that political infighting within ANC. And eventually, when Cyril became the president, he set up a Zondo commission to try corruption cases on state capture. And the familiar name in South Africa there was the Guptas, whom were alleged to be the business partners of Jacob Zuma. You know, it went on, and that culminated in Jacob Zuma at a point in time being incarcerated for contempt of court. And it was a standoff between the state and people in his Nkandla residence and Axis. So all these things had whipped up sentiments in favor of Jacob Zuma. And he's quite popular among his people, the Zulus. Jacob Zuma is Zulu. Cyril Ramaphosa is from a province called Limpopo, and which is quite close to Gauteng there.
Okay.
So
in the north.
Yeah, in the north, exactly. You know, where you have Polokwane and the rest of them, and borders and Zimbabwe. So by the time this, eventually Zuma was basically edged out of the party, so to speak. And he was in and out of court, in and out of this, you know, formed another labor, you know, union and all that. You need to understand that South Africa is also a very unionized country, given their background from apartheid and the mine workers and all that. So it's a very unionized country. So he formed another union, and then he was there just, that was basically to just stay current with his people, be in touch with the Zulu people and all that. Remember I said they have the largest population in South Africa. Now, sometime in September, October last year, he floated a party, well, a bit of a tongue-twisting name, Nkontli, Kose, whatever, but it's called MK, popularly known as MK, and it means the spare of the nation in Zulu. It's translated to me the spare of the nation. And now these people, they started in about September, October last year, and he went around the whole of KwaZulu-Natal to mobilize the Zulus. Now, bring it to the current election that just happened last week. The result of all that drama, political drama, bad blood, and bickering between the leadership of ANC, particularly Cyril Ramaphosa, who was the deputy president to Jacob Zuma, and Jacob Zuma that led to him losing out in the political equation, is what culminated in the vote. Now, MK literally swept through South Africa. I don't think people saw it coming, or maybe they underestimated it because of the labeling of corrupt charges and all that against Jacob Zuma. But he has proven that he's very popular among the Zulus, and in fact, some other provinces with some sizable Zulu population like Mpumalanga, he ate into it. So Jacob Zuma's and the MK party has totally eaten into the stronghold of ANC. It has seen a third of ANC voted for MK. As we speak now, MK is the second largest opposition party, has even overtaken EFF. It's only second to DA, that's the Democratic Alliance. And they swept through KZN with maybe just some seats being won by IFP and ANC, but they totally are dominant in ANC. They won Mpumalanga, won some parts in Gauteng and all that. And they made a very pretty showing, and that has totally affected the majority that ANC was enjoying at the national and regional parliaments. We recall that South Africa runs a parliamentary system of government and is also a unitary state. So as of today, the party to watch is MK.
Oh, fantastic. That I'm sure for those of us that don't know too much, especially our viewers in all the continent, we now have a fantastic, understanding of what led to this. Because when you ask people nowadays that everybody believes that ANC will win and all that, so that's very good. Thank you for that, Dr. Akpan. That's why you're here, a scholar that is honest and true to power and by studious and says it the way it is. Now, you said something before I go to my next question. You said South Africa runs a parliamentary system and also a unitary system of government, right? Can you explain how that is combined? It's a side-by-side parliamentary and presidential in a way, what you call presidential in some. So what makes it unitary? What makes it parliamentary?
Okay.
How do they combine?
Okay, I think since you are speaking from Atlanta, then let me use the United States as make a comparison with the United States, and because they run a classical federal system in the United States. Now, federalism itself is a system of government where power is shared at the center with the devolving parts. So in America, for instance, where you have the federating unit, they devolve power devolution, they devolve. So where you have the United States, for instance, where you have the federal power sitting, the central power sitting in Washington, D.C., and then they kind of like supervise the country from the point of immigration, currency, national economy, and things that keep the United States together, and try to manage the constitution from that perspective. However, the other states, the other 50 states in America, have their own agenda, their own development agenda, their own constitution, so to speak. They run their own police, they run their own judiciary, they run everything basically on their own. The governors are executives in their own right and states and all that, where sitting behind the states is what you call the municipalities or the counties, so to speak, in America. So there's the 3 levels of federating units in America. You have the center, you have the states, and you have the municipality. That's federalism. It is federated in those 3 levels. Now, the unitary system of government essentially is more centralized. Now, remember that power is devolved and shared among these federating units. So there are some certain things that the center will just focus on. They don't need to dabble into the issues of the state. The states have their own powers to make their own laws and also to exercise the authority and development agenda from a point of culture, point of education, point of fire service and police and all that. Because, we're going to fight crime. Crime is local. So the states and the municipalities, they focus more on police and all that, while you probably might have a national guard at the center where they are only deployed where there's emergency and the state police are being overwhelmed. That's when they can be called in. And I think you also have some approval of the president and the Senate also to do that. Now, so there's clear-cut delineation of power in the federal system of government. But in the unitary system of government, the center actually controls everything, control the resources, so to speak. Now, for administrative convenience and purposes, they will set up other structures. In South Africa, you now have what's called the province. The South Africa has a central, then they have a provincial government. And like you said when you started, that they have 9 provinces. 9 provinces. So those 9 provinces are, so to speak, administrative in nature. And then within, under the 9 provinces, you also have the municipalities that take care of county and local issues and all that. But the powers are not as shared, are not separate the way it is in the states, in the United States of America, where the states can determine their own constitution and do that. So America is so classical in federalism that even the Reserve Bank also have offices in different areas in the states and all that to look at the state's economy. You're looking at an America where California might as well want to stand on its own on some certain issues. They don't need to agree with the states. You recall a certain time that I think under President Donald Trump, where the state of California did not agree with the issue of climate change. And then they said they were going to go through with climate change, regardless of the central government threatening to pull out of the Kyoto Accord. Now, they said they will stand on their own. In South Africa, it won't happen because what the center agrees, everybody just kowtow. Okay, now in parliamentary system of government, another classical example of parliamentary system of government is the UK, United Kingdom. Apparently, the United Kingdom is also a parliament, is also a unitary system of government, but it's just that they have a situation where you have a constitutional monarchy. They have a monarchy in place, which is maybe more ceremonial right now, and then you have the parliament where the prime minister can emerge from. Now, South Africa has a system that is a bit close to the UK, where you have to first and foremost be elected into the parliament. The parliament is, well, in Nigeria, they call it National Assembly. In America, you people call it the Congress. And then you have the House of Representatives and also the Senate, which is made up of the lower house, the upper house that is made up of the Congress, where the upper house, the Senate, is the senior partner. They ratify the presidential election and all that. Now, in South Africa, you first and foremost will have to be elected to be a member of the parliament. It is being a member of the parliament that the party that has majority seats in the parliament will now form the government, and then the head of the party now becomes the president. So as of today, that's regardless of the election, the president is still Cyril Ramaphosa because he's the head of ANC, and until after 2 weeks where the sitting parliament will be dissolved, because after today they have 2 weeks to be able to form a new government. Okay, and then so first you need to be in the parliament, and then from there the majority party will now form government. So this is basically the difference between a presidential system of government where there's president, and then in South Africa you have the parliament. But South Africa we call theirs the president, while the United Kingdom we call theirs prime minister. Now they call it prime minister because there's a king sitting also there, who is the head of the state and all that, while the prime minister with the majority party, I mean, for instance, in UK is with Rishi Sunak is the prime minister. So basically, those are the differences.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akpan, for that fantastic clarity. I'm sure everybody listening to you has learned a thing or two. So that clearly leads me to my next question. We know today ANC has just 40%. So based on the maths I'm just doing here, I see that DA, MKP, and EFF, between the three of them, if they work together, they have 44, but they need over 50% to form the government. Am I correct?
Yes, correct. So 51% actually.
Okay, so yeah. So now my question really is twofold, but I'm sure you answer what I'm trying to say. If all the opposition, the second, third, and fourth opposition party come together, which is 44, and they can get, say, another 6% from the others who have 13.9%. I mean, is that possible? Does it mean that they can form the government? Because I know that's the first question. Second question is, ANC with 40%, who are they most likely going to align with? I'm sure you understand what I'm trying to say, that what are the most likely permutation? I'm sure there's a lot of horse trading going on right now. ANC with 40 probably has a lot of advantage. They can bring in D or EFF, may I bring in EFF alone, they have a 50%. So what are the likely permutations? What are the things happening behind the scene? And what are we likely to see? And let me just add the third one. Is there a possibility that ANC could lose out in all this?
Yes, sorry, your last question is that if there's a possibility of ANC doing what?
Losing out in the whole final permutation, despite having 40%.
No, that is that permutation is as far as heaven being to hell. It's not going to happen. ANC commands 40%, like you rightly said, and that gives them a good strength. That gives them a very, very massive strength. It's a parliament that has about 400 people sitting. That gives them the momentum and the strength to be able to form the party. So they are the people that will need to, because they have majority seats. It is not a simple majority. It's not a third simple majority, but they have majority. So they will need to lead the coalition, because what we are heading towards is a coalition. Now, so ANC definitely will be in that equation. So the question will now be, who may they likely work with? And then you had also rightly stated, enumerated the other political parties that have large chunk. The DA came second. Since 1994, the DA had always been the second largest party and the main opposition party to the DA, to the ANC. The DA, if you like, is likely, if you like, you can say it's a reincarnation of the National Party. National Party was a party of Frederick de Klerk, Peter Botha, the apartheid days. So those are basically white party and basically white party. So the DA is just a reincarnation of that. Their stronghold is in Cape Town, Western Cape. Western Cape is where you have Cape Town, because that is where most of the white people are concentrated. Of course, you have them in Johannesburg, here and there, but most, and also in Free State. But you have more of them are concentrated in Cape Town and Western Cape. So they've been in Western Cape for forever, and quite frankly, they have been the most efficient in terms of provincial management. The province of Western Cape is working, service delivery is good, and so to the admiration of every other person. So love them or hate them, whatever you say, they've been able to manage that province very, very well. There's no doubt about that. And now they come in second. They are pro-business. Of course, they are white, they are pro-business. And if you want to look at the investment demography, most of the investment, I mean, Africans are going to the West or the East to look for investment. The investment of the West basically are people that you may say are cousins to the white South Africans, either Caucasians, so to speak. So there's that kind of affinity that they will enjoy with the West also. The South African economy is more Western oriented, more Western bent, obviously because of the years of apartheid and all that. And most of the investments are also owned by Western countries and all that. You know, the East, China particularly, and a bit of India here and there are only coming in trickles. But the commanding height and the dominant space is from the Western, the global North, so to speak. So it's difficult for ANC at this. So DA is there, and then you now have the second one is MK. Now, there lies a big problem. Remember that there was a political rivalry between Jacob Zuma and Cyril Ramaphosa. Yeah, and that eventually led to the ouster of the Zuma from ANC, and also him being dragged to the Zondo Commission of Inquiry over corruption charges and, you know, in and out of court and all that. So there's already bad blood. I don't know if that bad blood can be reconciled. It's going to be difficult. It's difficult for it to be difficult. And Jacob Zuma is the leader of MK. He formed the party. He's the soul of the party. He mobilized the party. People voted for the party because of Jacob Zuma. So he's the talisman of that party. There is no other person that have that kind of charisma in that party but Jacob Zuma. Is the face of the party, the leg of the party, the voice of the party, and everything. So basically, he's the, if you like, the all and all of that party. So what he says will stand. And I do not see how, except he probably must have listened to a very strong gospel of Jesus Christ that preaches love and forgiveness before he will forgive Ramaphosa and allow MK. Or except maybe there's political expediency that they can work together. Otherwise, in the absence of those two, it will be difficult for MK and ANC to work together. That is on the Jacob Zuma factor. Another factor might be that MK, one of their policies is to nationalize some of the sectors in South Africa, like the mines and all that. ANC haven't been in party for 30 years. We'll have probably have some understanding of how the world global economy works, and then they may not want to go that route. In fact, they do not want to go that route. So ANC may want to look at it from the point of nationalization of some assets like the mines. So that might also be a very tough one for them to reconcile in terms of forming a coalition. And that also goes for EFF. EFF is number 3, the party of Julius Malema. Now, that party was number 2 until MK came on the board. So what has happened is that MK took the votes of ANC and also took the votes of EFF. So EFF has dropped in the pecking order to number 3 in terms of opposition. But it will be difficult also for ANC to work with EFF because EFF is very left, it's far left, you know, and probably more communist in thinking. And then he'll be talking of nationalization, just like MK, of the assets. And I do not see how ANC will want to go to that, because the event you start to have that discussion, you signal something to the investing public, the foreign direct investment. And global investors will need to hold on their brakes and see what is happening, you know, because, I mean, that means you're moving away from capitalism into more of a controlled economy. So that might be a very difficult thing. So from every indication, the most plausible partner for them to work with will be DA. Now, if they get into with DA, automatically they will form beyond 51%. I mean, if you look at the seats of ANC and DA,
yeah, they can do that about 61%.
Exactly. And that gives them a commanding control of the parliament. Okay, but there has to be some ideological alignment, so to speak. For instance, the DA may not want to favor. Now, recently they just passed a new comprehensive health insurance scheme, which will cover everybody. The DA wasn't in support of that bill. They didn't vote for the bill. So that might become an issue that they want to discuss. There is a system that is run in South Africa that was instituted by ANC. It's called the BEE. It's more like a black empowerment program and all that, where if you're a black female South African, you score some points. If you are black, and all that. So more like an affirmative action, so to speak, where they try to empower the black so that they can bring them into the economic balancing in the economy, and so that they can compete, so to speak, with the white and other maybe Indians also. But the 30 years down the road, that policy had not really achieved its purpose fully and all that. But I know DA is not very happy with that policy. They think it is incompetent. They think it is not right. They think they should be free competition. But remember that they have an advantage in the economy because of the wealth they have built over apartheid. So it's easy for them to say that also, So those are issues that we need to discuss. ANC, MK, and EFF also have some kind of policy on reclamation of land, taking back some certain land and redistributing the land without compensation. Now, they've been aping and been discussing this issue for 30 years. It has not really happened because a greater percentage of the land is still within the capital white people in terms of agriculture, factories, and all that. So Julius Malema of EFF had always campaigned against for that is going to take the land, nationalize that, and all that. But the fear and the worry is that just next door to South Africa is Zimbabwe, where late President Robert Mugabe also pushed for land reforms and all that, which essentially led to the collapse of the Zimbabwean economy. So there's also some palpable fear, particularly with ANC. I haven't been in government, so they understand the nuances of international politics and power and economy. So that's why they've been a bit foot dragging over that issue. So these other parties, EFF, MK, have never been in government. They've been in opposition. So they can, these are campaign promises they've made. These are ideology that they hold. But it is left to be seen that when they get into government, if they can still implement that kind of policy. But to my mind and my reading, it is a high possibility. It's a high possibility because ANC has declared that they're not going to sacrifice President Cyril Ramaphosa. So if they're not going to do that, and because one may not want to do business with Ramaphosa, that automatically will kill any kind of talk. So that is still bad. They probably may not even talk at all. So DA may appear to be their best candidate, even though Malema, EFF, had said before the election that he was willing to work with ANC, but he said he made a caveat that if they give they need to give the finance ministry position to an EFF person, and I think he particularly nominated Floyd Shivambu that to become the finance minister. Remember that EFF is more to the left, so I don't know how a leftist, can run the finance ministry, economic and finance ministry in a government. ANC is more to the center and more of the center right. So these are the permutations that we'll be looking at. So I don't know. I think I see them eventually opening some talks with DA.
Yeah, thank you. Fantastic. Atlanta discussed what is a discussion. So some of these issues we too will also have an opinion. And I agree with all you have said. I mean, ANC is in the driving seat clearly, but it's not going to be a walk in the park,
No, it's
I mean, talking to DA ideologically is a problem. It's not going to be. I mean, they are rivals. They're number one rivals. MKP, as tough as it is, if there are still elders in the room, I mean, most of the front runners are dead. The Sisulu, the Mbeki, they're out there, but they're still if there are still 1, 2, 3, 4 elders, middle level elders, maybe not up to the Mandela Sisulu level. If they are still in the room, they should be able to mediate this crisis. If not, that might just be the end of ANC. So I don't think it's
but you have to look at ANC that is already factionalized. The ANC of Mandela is not the ANC of Ramaphosa. It has been factionalized and very bruised. I mean, the General Secretary, Ace Magashule, was sent out of the party. He's from Free State. He's probably left with his own supporters. Jacob Zuma left also with his own supporters. In fact, it's the fallout of that faction infighting that has led to MK getting all these votes. And so the only person that is still alive that may have some level of credibility is former President Thabo Mbeki. To how far and what kind of influence will he have on the kind of the discussion? So it's now up to the leadership of ANC, as it were, to invite a leader, an elder statesman like Thabo Mbeki to probably start to have a conversation with them. But you see, yeah, it's still mostly MK. I don't know. MK is also a bit too left, and all that. They may not also, so to speak, like the so-called white dominance and all that. So there are, the hurdles with ANC and T is lower than the hurdle between other parties. So, like you said,
and MKP.
Yeah. So so adults really have to be in that room to take that decision, and also hope that decision will stand in that coalition. Otherwise, it may be an unstable government.
Unfortunately for ANC, the Ramaphosas of this world, the Zumas of this world, do not see Thabo Mbeki as a leader. That's where the problem. Unfortunately, because you remember during this the conference that led to Mbeki becoming VP to Mandela, you know, Ramaphosa was already Secretary General of ANC.
And the chief negotiator, when they were negotiating apartheid, he was the leading negotiator nominated by Mandela.
Exactly. So I mean, I told people as far back as then that it was just a matter of time before Ramaphosa becomes president. There was a reason they brought in Thabo Mbeki at that time. I think
because of his father.
Because he has always been a diplomat. His father was, I think, number 2 factor. I think the most important was that he has schooled in Oxford. He had been ANC ambassador around the world. So Mandela needed a younger person with some diplomatic experience around him, you know. But of course, it was Govan Mbeki's son. But today, the one who was even pushed out of power was most unceremonious also when they brought in Moglante. So if we look at the Nigerian palace of what an elder is, I don't think Zuma and Ramaphosa will see Mbeki as an arbitrator or an elder.
I doubt that also. I remember also that a lot of people see Ramaphosa as a stooge of the white DA and all that. You know, Julius Malema will not stop saying he's a puppet of the Oppenheimers, you know, and all those kind of talks and all that. You know, so it's a very dynamic future that we're progressing into. Interesting development.
I have a feeling that Ramaphosa, you know, I don't think he's been a fantastic president, but I think he has the diplomatic mean to maneuver this. You know, he has the experience, you know, and I'm sure that Ramaphosa won't take it too much to talk to Zuma. I'm sure the two of them know what's at stake. They both paid heavy prices directly and indirectly during the struggle, and they know what's at stake. So it's for them to. EFF, in my opinion, I mean, a minister for finance in a unitary government doesn't mean anything. In Africa, the way I see it, all these leftist writings is just they're just English, you know.
Look at when it gets to government, other things happen.
Everything changes, you know. They never say I'm a humanist, I'm a leftist, those things don't count in our context. But let's move forward. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa, you think, I mean, AFC is already balkanized. You said they have said it, we all see it. You know, do you think the dam has broken for ANC finally? Do you think Cyril Ramaphosa will survive this? But from all the analysis we've had thus far, it's not going to be a walk in the park. So do you think Cyril will survive all this? Well, I suspect that even the likes of Mbeki, no matter how not very strategic and political it might be, you know, even though he doesn't have those grassroots, he's still relevant. Even if it's just 1% relevance in ANC. So I'm thinking even people like Mbeki will be looking for blood. This is an opportunity for them to also pounce, you know, on Ramaphosa. And you know, Zuma and Ramaphosa together dealt with Mbeki. So there are other forces in play within the party too that are like, okay, let's deal with it. So do you think the dam has finally broken in the ANC?
Well, you describe Ramaphosa as somebody who is very politically astute, diplomatic, and all that.
That's the word I should astute, yeah.
And that's what he is. As maybe probably he saw this coming. I mean, the signs were there. If you look at the electoral statistics, they have been declining in terms of majority in the House. And the last time they only had about 57 points, approximately 58%. So it was a decline. So they knew. So what he had done, this fighting in the last 5 years, what he has done is that he seems to have ousted every opposition in ANC. And his
Yes,
men
yes.
are there. The Fikile
He has
Mabula,
consolidated power.
he has consolidated power in ANC completely. So he's holding to the jugular, he's holding to the soul of ANC. So that's why the party immediately had issued a press statement that they're not going to sacrifice Mandela for anything. It's not going to, Ramaphosa for anything. It's not going to happen. And in fact, they expect him to lead in the negotiation of the coalition. And the largest trade union body in South Africa, the COSATU, already had issued a statement supporting Ramaphosa. So those kind of blocks makes him very strong, okay, in ANC. Now, ANC is a legacy party. It's a party with a lot of history. It's a party, or is a party that is seen as a liberator. There's a lot of nostalgia with ANC. The nostalgia
Becky, Mandela,
and all that, so those names still evoke a lot of sentiments. So the people per se really do not have a problem with ANC, but it is in the failing in terms of service delivery and the tanking of the economy and the growing unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, that has also brought all this situation. So ANC will need to rediscover their mojo, and I think they can do it. They still have 40%, which seems to means that at least they still have a national spread.
And so Zuma now, all the Zuma.
Sorry,
Jacob Zuma
is 82. Zuma is 82. So you're looking at the generational biological issue coming in also. I don't see him living another 20 years or 10 years or so. But I don't know. I'm not God. You never can tell. But I must say he's a very healthy 82-year-old. At 82 is look, South Africa is, in terms of land mass, is bigger than Nigeria. It's bigger than Nigeria. And imagine an 82-year-old man going around such a vast country in campaigning and all that. Traversing. And so you see that he's a very healthy 82-year-old man and still very sharp in his mind and all that. So Ramaphosa is quite diplomatic. A lot of people have been disappointed by him because of the economy. Some see him as a stooge and all that. And but he's a clever politician. For him to have been able to, because he wasn't in mainstream ANC politics, and he does not have a heritage where you have a heritage of freedom fighters like Thabo Mbeki had his father and the children. But he came in from some certain, and then was dominated by Mandela. And ever since then, remember, he's a lawyer also, and led the negotiating team of ANC with the apartheid government and all that. So there's a lot of history that he also comes, a lot of nuances that he carries that he knows, and a lot of people he can reach out to, to help him, because they might need to bring in some arbiters. So he have enough reach and network to be able to perform and pull these things together. And he still have access to some certain resources that can make this. I mean, he's a billionaire in his own right. And I'm also been a government in charge of ANC. I'm sure he'll be able to navigate all through this. There'll be compromise here and there. There'll be trade-offs here and there, but there'll be no-go areas. So I'm sure they will be able to pull through somewhere, somehow. But it's not so much of, if they focus a lot more on what will bind the coalition together, then it will work. But if they focus a lot more on their differences, then they will have those problems, and those cracks will always come up from time to time.
Okay, what's the likes of Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the Zulu monarchy? I know Zuma is Zulu. Does Mbeki, what's his name again? Ramaphosa. Does he have any? Can he play on any old relationship there? I know Buthelezi never agreed with Mandela on so many things. Never agreed with ANC. The Zulu party, what's their name again?
Inkatha Freedom Party.
Inkatha Freedom Party, yeah. So are they also in bed with Zuma, or is something Ramaphosa can play on?
Well, if you look at the history of the IFP itself, that was started by Mangosuthu Buthelezi, but he passed on last year.
Okay.
Just like Jacob Zuma, who is the talisman of MK, he was the talisman of IFP, and he was in IFP for a very long time, and he was also the prime minister of this royal palace in Zululand. So he wasn't just a politician, but he was also royalty, so to speak. And the Zulus are very traditional people. They respect their palace a lot. So he played a lot of role in making because the king as at that time also had passed on 2 years ago thereabout, and there's a new king, So the absence of the late king that had passed on, had joined his ancestors, and also the absence of the great Mangosuthu Buthelezi has left a gap within KwaZulu-Natal. The current king has not really settled down, so to speak. They are still in court with his siblings over who the rightful king will be and all that. So that has also had a dent, so to speak, on the political holding of in KwaZulu-Natal. So clearly that leaves Zuma in charge of KwaZulu-Natal. Clearly, this he basically owns the structure in KwaZulu-Natal.
Nature abhors vacuum, so Zuma feels
yes. I mean, the election result shows it completely. I mean, it trounced IFP. In fact, IFP has won 4, 5 seats here and there and all that. IFP had worked before the election. They had worked, have some level of coalition with DA, and so in that conversation, the DA might still want to pick them up as a junior partner, because the DA actually had signed some agreement here and there that whatever happens, that they may need all those parties to come into a block and negotiate. So the DA, having worked with Mangosuthu and IFP in Kata Freedom Party for some time, might still want to continue that relationship. IFP is strong. They are basically a Zululand party. Mangosuthu Buthelezi is from KwaZulu-Natal, just like Jacob Zuma. And they have a very strong, in terms of demography, they have a very strong population. But Cyril Ramaphosa is from Limpopo, just like Julius Malema is from Limpopo. They don't have that kind of strong demography, politically speaking, to do. So Zuma is just basically in charge. The structures are with him now in KwaZulu-Natal.
So Malema, if you had ANC's 40.21 to EFF 9.51, that's approximately 50% already, And that makes, I think that would be a very easy discussion for Zuma, you understand? Give them, being finance minister doesn't mean you control the economy, you understand?
No. Of his portfolio.
I mean, if I were President Ramaphosa, I would just go and meet Malema, because I think we'll have learned a thing or two from the election, that, a lot of lessons from politics, that it's not just
he's been humble.
He's been humble, exactly. So, and I think it'd be wise for him, let me to be relevant. Let me taste what power is, I mean, I'm sure with 40%, and he had his own roughly 10%, that gives him 20% of what the coalition is all about, in 100%.
There's a possibility. There's that possibility, because Ramaphosa and Julius Malema are both from Limpopo. So they can sit down in Polokwane and then call the elders in Polokwane to see how they can work together. I remember that Malema was the youth leader in ANC. He was the youth leader in ANC.
Yeah.
So he actually left the party when Zuma was the president. So it was a disagreement he had with Zuma that made him to leave ANC. He was a national youth leader and started EFF, and he's done quite well. And also recall that,
of fact, if he goes with the way I understand politics, if he goes with Ramaphosa, show some obeisance, some loyalty, make the coalition work, you understand? He's indirectly putting himself in line to be president in future. You understand?
Because of the generational.
There's almost nobody. There's almost nobody in ANC now, that can rock
with the charisma.
Really popular. Yeah, charisma. So, okay, let's
but he will. But what? Yeah, for that to happen, that is a possibility, and it's a very good possibility. I mean, he himself said that the late Winnie Mandela had predicted that he was going to go back to ANC, because I mean that is possible. But two things will have to happen for him to, like you rightly said, Malema himself is humble. I mean, he got a bit too overconfident, also thinking that he was going to become number one opposition. So the result, I mean, he's mere and he's already downcast. So he's humble. So he's also Ramaphosa. So EFF and ANC are the biggest losers in this election in terms of voting numbers. So two victims may come together, they have a common problem, you know, and all that, they can meet together over, you know, and discuss and say, look, man, there's a new guy, a new kid on the block. Let's quickly consolidate. So they can do that. But Malemba will now need to start to move away a bit from the left and get to the center, because some of the policy of nationalization, I really don't see that working in 2024 economy, the 21st century economy. It won't work. So yes, you're very correct. The current Secretary General, who is Mabula, Mabula, they were together in the youth team, but he doesn't have the charisma of Malema. Malema has charisma, is quite articulate and eloquent, but his policies may need to shift a bit. And there's a possibility that if they go into that coalition, eventually, in terms of generational, you know, change and all that, if they are moved back into ANC, then he stands a very good chance of becoming president. So it depends on how he sees the dynamics and position himself for tomorrow's power.
If Malema had studied the Tsvangirai in Zimbabwe, you know, how Tsvangirai played his politics, one of the mistakes Tsvangirai made was, you know, he should have just come under Mugabe one way or the other. You understand? Join the same party. Now the man was finally pushed away. You understand? Then he will, I mean, the natural successor through that line. Because it's almost impossible to push ANC out of the entire politics. All right, let's move on a bit. Okay, today South Africa, with this, the economy is not fantastic. South Africa is playing politics with BRICS. The president Ramaphosa is trying to balance his friendship with the West. They're in court with Israel and all that.
The ICJ and all that.
ICJ and all that. I mean, clearly, diplomatically, South Africa is on the map of the world, whether for good or for bad. You understand? I mean, they are more pronounced. That decision to go to the ICJ has really made them look like a very strong country politically, you know, even the initial decision and what have you, you know. So now, economically, with this election, with the way things are going, a little bit of instability there, but I'm sure South Africa will surmount it. What does this portend for the entire sub-region and the leadership that South Africa is offering in the SADC region, as the SADC?
Okay, so SADC is, if you look at the population of South Africa, is about 60 to 62 million. Or
yeah, 62,
I mean,
62.
Migrants and the indigenous South Africans together. And if you look at the SADC, I mean, here and there, you pick up Lesotho, maybe 2 million here, Swaziland, 1.2 million. You know, I guess the largest in terms of population after South Africa will be Zimbabwe, sitting at about 17, 18 million. Malawi, less than that and everything. So clearly, South Africa is SADC. SADC is South Africa. So they basically, if South Africa is troubled, SADC will be troubled in so many ways. Most of the SADC countries are landlocked, except for Namibia. Yeah, we probably still have some coastal outlet to water throughout this bay and all that. But all those Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and all that, those are landlocked countries. Swaziland, Lesotho is even encircled by South Africa. You know, so so South Africa basically is SADC. So if the economy of South Africa suffers, the only country that probably in terms of economy, in terms of GDP, in terms of purchasing power parity, and in terms of human development index is Botswana. But it's about 4 million or so thereabout, but a lot of mines, you know, and probably been well run for some time. But outside that, so South Africa, in calculating, even, I mean, if you look at the op-ed that the Pandor, who is the Minister for External Communication, like in Nigeria, America is the Secretary of State, in Nigeria is Foreign Affairs Minister, you know, she did an op-ed trying to call the attention of the West to the importance of South Africa in SADC, that if the sanctions, I mean, this was as a reaction to the bill that was sponsored in the US Congress in looking at South Africa, again, giving their activism in the international setting where they've been leaning more to the East than to the West. BRICS nation, friendship with China, supporting Russia against Ukraine, at least maybe not directly, but with some certain nuances, body language, and also going to ICJ against the West that is friends with against Israel that is a friend of the West, and supporting Palestine and all that. So a certain member of the Congress had gone to passed a bill that, look, we need to review this relationship with South Africa and all that. You know, so she wrote an op-ed trying to link the SADC economy to the South African economy. That even in their Goa policy of America towards Africa, where you can access the US market, that they access the market and they have a trade of about 20 billion thereabout. Some of those supply chain comes from other countries like Lesotho, Swaziland, and all that. So whatever happens to South Africa will definitely affect SADC. Most of the SADC people, especially Zimbabwe, they come to South Africa to work, to live, and everything. So they have to be careful. And the advantage that they have, thank God, is that there's a lot of white people in South Africa, probably 5 million thereabout in South Africa. So it is also not going to be express for the West to put sanctions on South Africa because of their cousins that are there and their investment that they have. So I think South Africa, they will need to, after this election, perhaps he probably focus a lot more on international relations, maybe trying to deflect attention from internal problems or whatever it was. And maybe he forgot to mobilize the local people to vote for him. Now, after this election, I'm sure, I mean, his more focus will be more in South Africa, in consolidating power and getting back the fortunes of ANC. So, and also, I'm sure when they meet, they will start and say, look, Mr. President, look, remember that you're not just on your own, you're a big brother. If anything happens to you, it affects us. So there will be some reason to prevail, you know. So I see, really, particularly if they go into an alliance with DA, then you'll start to see a bit of a change of foreign policy from South Africa, a bit of a change of foreign policy. Because the foreign policy itself over this Israel-Palestinian is not just the making of Ramaphosa. It's a doctrine that started under Mandela and consolidated under Thabo Mbeki, their policy against Israel, because they see Israel as also running an apartheid government against the Palestinians. So they can identify, having come from an apartheid background themselves, they can identify with the suffering. And also, when the days of apartheid, Israel, they see Israel as, well, Israel was in bed with the West. They were more interested in the business and all that, but the other Eastern people, like the Arabs and the Palestinians, sort of like showed late Yasser Arafat have made one or two comments to show favor to ANC at that time. Because if you recall that when Mandela came out of prison, he visited Yasser Arafat, he visited Fidel Castro in Cuba. And those are socialists, you know. So ANC came out. I mean, every liberation force usually is a socialist force. You know, it is only when you get into government that you start to balance so many things. Okay, so yes, ANC may have changed in terms of economic policy, but the history, the nostalgia of their past friends is still there. So I think all those things, but if they get into any coalition with DA, which is pro-West in every, I mean, the leader of DA, same thing, when Ramaphosa was going, he told the West to explain that there's a difference between ANC and South Africa, that they should target ANC and not target South Africa. So if he goes into an agreement with DA, you see that one of the things that you'll start to see is going to be change of policy. Gradually. They'll start to change the policy. I mean, some of the very wealthy South Africans are of even Jewish heritage, like the Oppenheimers are Jewish.
Oppenheimers, that's true. But you can see from what you have said now, from our discussion, that even Malema is not too far from home, you know, with the communists, Castro, and all that. Okay, yes. My last question for you. I mean, time is fast, but I know you're very busy, you know, and let me ask you this. Any lesson for Nigeria, your home country, after the Senegalese and the South African election? I mean, I think I won't even forgive myself if I don't ask you that, you know. All that we have discussed about South African election, we're not talking violence, nobody's talking rigging, nobody is saying my vote. So you understand the basic of a country's election, the basic of balloting, the basic has been fulfilled. People's right to vote, people's vote has been counted. We're doing 41.78. Nobody is disputing it. 21.78. Nobody is disputing it. The only thing that is in dispute is how they realign, and all that. Any lesson, the Senegalese have shown it. Then when Abdou Diop was trying to be a tyrant, the people came and support Wade in Senegal.
And even the cops.
Wade was trying to be a tyrant. What's the guy that just left now? I forgot his name again. The guy that just
I know.
Yeah, they came to his support. Now, even when he wanted to be a tyrant, the people, you know, I mean, they've been constant, just like the South Africans. So, what are the lessons for Nigeria in all this, in the ensuing, African political battle? That's the last question, sir.
Yeah, okay. So Nigeria, Nigeria, the first challenge that Nigeria has is that you're dealing with a country with about 250 ethnic groups. Now, that makes it is good for, as a diverse country, it is very good, because it simply means that there'll be availability and variety of talents. And of course, we are not lacking in talent in any way at all. In academia, in sports, in arts, culture, we are not lacking in any way. So it boils down to the issue of leadership, and how selfless are the leaders. Now, if you look at Nigeria historically, you discover that Nigeria has been running a leadership that is more focused on ethnic sentiments, particularly in the South. In the North, it's more of ethno-religious sentiments, where Islam plays a factor in the North. I mean, if you're not Fulani and all that, all those hegemonic, feudalistic thinking and all that, And well, in recent times, after, particularly under Buhari, the landscape Nigeria has started to change. There's a shifting where people from the central, Nigeria is geopolitically divided to six geopolitical zones, and the north central has a lot of ethnic groups. In the northeast, you have the Kanuris and Shu Arabs and few Fulanis here and there. I mean, but the northwest, which has been the power block under the military from history and all that. So you'll see that gradually they are beginning to lose that invincibility, because one of the things that they didn't do for themselves is that the leaders didn't do a lot to educate them. I mean, the last issue of the Emirates tussle in Kano is going to whittle the power and the influence a lot in the north. And places like Sokoto, Zamfara, the caliphate is in Sokoto, neighboring Zamfara and all that. They've been riddled with bandits. So the dynamics are changing gradually. A few Northerners that are now educated, the young Turks, are beginning to ask questions. They will begin to ask this so-called question of one North. I mean, because all they see is that the benefit is to the North and no more not to them. So on the ground on ethnic politics, suffering, poverty, and all that is gradually beginning to unite the people. The last vestige will be that the people telling any political leader to say, no, you cannot use ethnic to campaign. You have not performed, and that is going to happen because of the suffering that is going on currently, for economic hardship that is going on currently with the so-called corrective measures that President Tinubu is passing. So a lot of people are falling more into the poverty bracket, and that in itself will unite them. And then, so ethnic and religious politics will start to wane gradually. Now, that was the basis. The basis was patronage. Within the ethnic and religious sentiments that the leadership was using, these people had coalesced themselves into a class, into an elite class that were beneficiaries of the system called Nigeria. So it was a system of patronage where they just take from the treasury, fund themselves, their lifestyles and all that. Now, there's hardly even any money for anybody to steal, as it were. The economy is in oxygen, is in ICU, where the revenue that they make, they have to use to service debt, the huge debt that Buhari left behind and all that. So the dynamics 2027 is going to be very different in Nigeria, so to speak. You have a generation that have grown, and Gen Z that have grown. And this has started with the last election where INEC was dragged all over social media. There was accusation, people saying they're incompetent, Yakubu and all that. So it's beginning to get to a point where because the Electoral Commission, like you rightly stated, is very important. In the case of South Africa, is that there's a high level of transparency. You didn't hear, except for the 2 hours glitch that happened, all the results were uploaded. I mean, except for MK getting a bit cocky to say that, look, some of their results were not counted. Every other political party accepted the results, including EFF. They accepted the results. So which shows that if 99% says it is credible, then it is credible, so to speak. But that is confidence expressed in the management of the electoral process. So the going forward for Nigeria, the real issue the two major factors in Nigeria that will stabilize Nigeria going forward is not necessarily the politician. It is INEC and the judiciary. INEC and the judiciary. The judiciary is, the judiciary is currently going through a very bad patch. I mean, you have had to have the CJ summoning two judges, two federal high court judges to NJC, a National Judicial Commission, to query them over giving ex parte motions and conflicting motion. I mean, you're talking of two courts of equal jurisdiction, and then also looking at the ICJ, where somehow his daughter-in-law, his brother-in-law, and all that have been appointed, elevated. So there's a crisis in the judiciary. So the current CJ, Arolo, is leaving this year. And then you're going to have, from what I hear, the next Chief Justice that will succeed him is a woman called Kekere Ekun. Okay, I think it's Monsurat Kekere Ekun also. And I hear she's from Lagos, from the Kekere Ekun family. It's very tough. So if you have the judiciary being reformed, being revamped by a woman who probably has a better disposition in terms of name, family name, and also, when you appoint women to leadership position, the gender sees it as an opportunity to show that they can do better than the men. So that might play a lot of factor. And then INEC. So INEC and judiciary will play a key role. If they play a key role, the ability to say no to a politician, because the Nigerian political class will need to be tutored, will need to be pushed back, because they can go to any length to do anything to bribe their way to mess up the whole system because of their own selfish aim. Because most of those politicians don't even have a second address. They don't have any other career. They're career politicians. Out of power, they are broke. They with them before they are dead, then they're out of power. So they keep their lifestyle funded from power. So if the Electoral Commission can look at the lessons, I know Jonathan was here heading the Electoral Monitoring Commission and all that. So if he takes his lessons back and is able to connect it to the INEC, who should be reading, because the election was very well organized, and then they organized an election that is seen to be credible. That will play a role. Another factor that South Africa has, which is commendable, is that they have diaspora voting. They have diaspora voting. I mean, needless to say that 85% of diaspora voting went to DA, because a lot of white people have migrated outside. So a lot of them just voted for DA, as it were. So if Nigerians, if you are going to rely on people like you who are in the diaspora to send money back home and all that, then you must have a say. So if the diasporans themselves begin to get organized and say, look, the Indians did it in their own political development, where the diaspora will say, look, we are bringing in a large chunk of money, so this needs to be done right. So if the diaspora become a lot more organized and a lot more vociferous in terms of articulating their concerns, and then the media, of course, blowing this up, and then the judiciary, whom I hear the woman that is coming in is a reformer, and then we get INEC right, I think it will be well. The problem is just the misbehavior of politicians. I don't know. With Nigerian politicians, at times I wonder.
Nigerian politicians, failure of leadership, lack of insincere people. I've always said it. Some of my past guests, Professor Tommy or Dinkalu, Pastor Itwa, so many people have said it is failure of leadership. When I was asking them whether we needed to change the constitution, they said, no, it has nothing to do with the constitution. It's just failure of leadership. And we have seen it in Senegal and South Africa. I think one of the issues you mentioned about our diversity, multicultural, all that, I don't even think it's a problem. I think it's an advantage. But if you look at India, they're also voting in India right now, and I think they're about rounding up. And it has been peaceful. India is 1.2 billion or 1.3, now more than China.
Largest in the world.
Yeah, it's the largest, arguably the most volatile democracy. Indira Gandhi was assassinated. There was no coup in India. Rajiv Gandhi, the son came in, was assassinated. There was no coup in India. So India, with its volatility, a nuclear power state, has shown that the multi-ethnicity is now an advantage, multi-religious and what have you. So Nigeria has no excuse. 200 million people compared to 1.2 billion, So
we don't have any excuse. We don't have any excuses. Our excuses, and we can't even keep blaming we can't keep blaming the 1 second. I just wanted to take off something. We just cannot keep blaming the British that they lumped us together and all that.
Those
was 1960. That's gone. We need to sit down as adults and resolve our problem. So the issue is just basically politicians. It's leadership, like Chinua Achebe once said in his book, that the problem of Nigerian politics, square and simple, is leadership. It's leadership. completely.
It
And
is.
political
It is.
leadership.
And
Political
also
leadership.
followership. I think we should start adding followership to it now.
Yeah, followership. Yeah, 100% I agree. I agree.
Dr. Udoh James Akpan, thank you so much for your time on Atlanta Discuss. You made our day. You're going to be back, no doubt. I'm sure with the way things are going on in South Africa, there'll be some intrigues that will emanate in the next few days that will bring you back. And to our viewers, Antarctica, Australia, Asia, Africa, Europe, North America, South America, thank you so much. It's a wrap. My name is still Ade Balogun. See you soon with another topic that will reverberate, that will be incisive, and that will interest you and add value to humanity. Take care. Thank you again, once again, Dr. Akpan.
Thank you very much. All right, bless.